A battle is underway right now between the Trump administration and the state of Minnesota over our voter rolls. Minnesota Republicans in Congress are pushing legislation that would prohibit the state from receiving federal election assistance money unless it hands over that data. It all comes as President Trump is starting to suggest nationalizing future elections. Here's Danny Spiewak.
Jana, all four of Minnesota's Republican U.S. representatives in the House have signed on to this legislation threatening to revoke federal election funding to their own state, Minnesota. But top Democratic leaders in the state call the bill outrageous, claiming that it's part of a broader effort to undermine trust in the midterm elections.
Led by Republican U.S. Representative Pete Stauber, the Minnesota Voter Integrity Act threatens to terminate federal election funding unless the state provides voter records to the DOJ, such as documents related to the same-day registration process.
Well, it's not going to happen, and that's the extent of Pete Stauber's intellect and legislative abilities.
Stauber, who is not available for an interview, says the bill is designed to ensure our elections are fair and have full transparency. The legislation follows months of legal battles between the Trump administration and several states, such as Minnesota, over access to voter information.
Been a lot of talk about voter rolls and voter information recently, far more than is comfortable for me.
Democratic Attorney General Keith Ellison and Secretary of State Steve Simon argue that state law prevents Minnesota from handing over this sensitive data, which would include driver's license numbers and last four digits of Social Security.
But so far, those efforts have been rebuffed by courts, which have found the president just does not have the power to do these things on his own.
Derek Klinger works with the University of Wisconsin State Democratic Research Initiative.
Why the federal government wants this information is a little unclear.
Besides demanding state voter records, President Trump also suggested this week that the federal government should nationalize the state-run election system.
If they can't count the votes legally and honestly, then somebody else should take over.
Governor Walz expressed alarm about that idea.
It's very clear that there is no intention by this federal government to have fair elections. There's every intention to suppress those.
The White House press secretary has claimed that President Trump was talking about a national voter ID law when he suggested that nationalizing of elections. But in any event, Congress would need to approve any type of measure that would revoke control of elections from the states. And Senate Republican leadership has already said that they would not support that. Jana.
Danny, I want to go back to that claim by Representative Congressman Stauber, saying to ensure fair elections. We don't have any history of some election fraud here in Minnesota.
There is not any evidence of widespread fraud in Minnesota. That's what the Secretary of State has said, and the governor, of course, maintaining that. What some of the Republican members of Congress from Minnesota have said that they believe because of the fraud issues that have happened under the Walz administration that there's a need for this legislation. That was the statement they put out. But we weren't able to interview any of them as they were unavailable today.
All right. Thanks so much, Danny. Appreciate it.